Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is part 3 of the Galactic Heritage cards. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. So I pulled 2 cards already. So what came out, so if you've seen the previous videos, you're gonna understand why I'm pre-shuffling. So I did the 2 card pull. The 78 came out, Future, Seeing the One, Earth. The second card that came out was Logic and Reason, Vega, Present. So I have future and present. All right. But from the 26, the second card pull, all these came out. All right. So, all right. So I'm being called to do number 26 first. All right. So we're going to start with 26. And since I already pulled all the cards that come with 26, I put them in order. I'm going to go by the order. So the first one, I'm going to start reading 26. And before I finish the 26, I'm going to start with the 21. Okay, so if you have an idea where we're going. So 26. In the very ancient days, Vegans were very balanced in their mental and emotional bodies. But later, their practices and discipline created an imbalance of logic and reason. They learned to ignore their emotions, judging them to be inferior to the mental experience. Emotions are an essential part of the human experience and must be expressed alongside our thought processes. Look at yourself honestly. Do you learn more toward focusing on the mental body, logic, and reason, or towards expressing emotions? Both are important, but in moderation. Balance comes from honoring both equally. One of the biggest karmic challenges of the ancient Vegans had to do with how they used their self-discipline to develop the mental body. In this era of the Vegan civilization, they had a challenge with overdeveloping the mental body to the detriment of the emotional one. This eventually led to challenges in their offshoot races, such as the Zeta Reticuli and Earth. All right, so with this, I'm going to go to 21. So the 26 that we just read is Vega on the present, right? Which brought us to the 21 self-sacrifice, Vega past. Okay, so we're gonna go 21. Okay, so self-sacrifice, Vega, the past. The ancient Vegan spirit was one of the selflessness. Vegans were known to give their lives for others as a gesture of extreme love and compassion and in support of the community. However, it could sometimes be taken too far, as when self-sacrifice hurts the self so much that the person cannot remain strong and healthy in order to continue to be of service. So in other words, if you overly give, you get burned out. That's in short words. This is a deep karmic pattern that many people have. Me, myself, I had that. Examine your patterns when it comes to self-sabotage. Take care of yourself as you would as a precious gift. And then you can give more to others. Pour into yourself, pour into your waters and your cup. Pour more water into your cup so you can have water to give others, right? This is a very old pattern deep within many people, and it explains the nature of Vegan consciousness from the ancient days. The ancient Vegan mystics sometimes use severe practices to develop their spiritual skills. These practices were meant to burn away the ego. Often, self-sacrifice can be a noble act that furthers spiritual development, but sometimes it can be an act that reflects a lack of self-worth Verbally, sacrifice becomes a way to atone for perceived failings. In other words, like you self-sacrifice you because maybe of failure or whatever. So when the ego comes in, and when you overly give and overly do stuff and overly practice, even mysticism, even spirituality, sometimes it's is from an ego space, trying to fill a void instead of going within and healing within is what basically I'm understanding from that. Like, oh, it's almost like overcompensated for failures, you know. Yeah, it's like some people when they do bad things and then they go to church and find, you know, Jesus Christ and whatnot, and then they overly compensate for their wrongdoings. They're still doing the wrong thing. They're still coming from ego, from an egotistic space. And I'm not saying everybody does that, but sometimes there's a lot of people that do that, right? Not judging anybody. Just this is just an example. If this card appears in your readings, it is encouraging you to look at your relationship to sacrifice and self-worth. In what parts of your life do you sacrifice your deepest needs? How are you furthering old unhealthy patterns by maintaining this behavior? Or can you sacrifice some of your ego's desires as a way to grow spiritually? The early spiritual ascetics from Vega and even those on present-day Earth eventually have to evolve beyond self-sacrifice. Know that it can be a powerful teaching tool, but it doesn't have to be a way of life. This card asks you to examine deeply your self-worth and how you sacrifice your integrity in this lifetime. Confronting this painful knowledge can set you free. So the first step to doing that is trying to figure out if you're doing spiritual job or if you're doing stuff like that. Are you doing it from a space of ego, or are you doing it from a space of heart and soul? Are you doing it like for validation, or are you doing it because it's within you that you feel to do it? You know what I'm saying? So first of all, looking within and realizing what your actions, where your actions are coming from, and then from there start healing it. It's okay if you, let's say you're doing it from the ego space. It's fine to like have that realization, even if it's painful, because that's how you're gonna grow and evolve and come out of that. It's only by looking at your shadow self and seeing the dark side of it. Even if it's painful to admit it to yourself. You don't have to admit it to the world. Just admit it to yourself and start looking at ways to do it differently in a more evolved way. All right, so that, and now the next card we have is 24, which is self-discipline, which brought us back to the present. 26 was present, 21 was past, and now it's present Vega. So 24. The profound nature of Vega mysticism came from their intense self-discipline. As an example, you see this now in martial arts or meditation practices. I was just saying that, right? Anyway. Spiritual skills do not develop without this self-discipline and devoted practice. Karmically, many humans now either resist discipline or crave it because of their ancient experiences. What is your pattern? Know that self-discipline is a vital part of spiritual growth, but too much of it creates rigidity. It is important to find the middle ground and use discipline as a tool to further your growth without it being a hindrance, which is what we just spoke about, right? And instead of coming from the ego space, come from the heart space. The heart and the soul. Probably the best pop culture reference to help people understand the nature of the ancient Vegans people is that of Mr. Spock of Star Trek. In that famous TV show, the Vulcan race was known for its intense self-discipline to control emotion. It's okay to like control your emotions, right? Let me I'm stopping to say this. As I get downloads, I'm gonna tell you. So So it's okay like to control your emotions, but it's not so much so to control them more than to balance it, right? It's a difference between controlling one thing and balancing a thing. Like if you control your emotions, you try to control your emotions, you create resistance instead of letting it flow, right? So let it flow, go through it, right? And master the balance of it, because it's not bad to feel our emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's whatever it is that you think is negative, because nothing is negative or positive, it's just neutral, right? So it's more so like balancing things rather than controlling. The Vegans had a similar commitment to not only self-discipline in order to work with emotions, but also to evolve spiritually, manifest what they needed in their world, and organize their society. This trait can be both positive and negative. In the positive sense, it can lead you to the heights of spiritual advancements and enlightenment. But in the negative sense, it can lead to self sacrifice and even the control of others. We just spoke about this. I haven't even read this before. Which played out in the descents of the Vegans, the Aryans. If you receive this card in your reading, you must look at your life situation and the other cards to truly see the perspective the cards are showing you. Do you need more self-discipline in this life and spiritual development, or do you need less? Again, it comes down to balance, right? It's not that you stop doing stuff or don't do it. You do what you want. It's just how you balance it. Do you resist the concept of self-discipline, or do you see it to push yourself? To punish, I'm sorry. I'll read that again. Do you resist the concept of self-discipline, or do you use it to punish yourself? Examining all of these factors and more will help you see how the message of this card can be applied to your life. All right, so the next card we have is number 30, past card, and it's bringing up the Zeta Reticuli, survival fears. Okay. In the ancient days of the Zeta Reticuli, their species nearly destroyed themselves due to high planetary toxicity and misuse of technology. When they realized that their species was dying, they experienced the most primal of fears, that of no longer continuing as a species. These survival fears forced them to look deeply within and make drastic changes. The same is true in our lives. Often we don't make changes until we can clearly see that our old ways will only destroy us. By then, we have little chance of change. What part of your life needs to be changed? Begin the process now before it becomes too difficult. The saga of Zetas is extremely important to humans, for they represent a possible timeline of Earth that could possibly destroy itself. Originally, from the Vega colonies, the Zeta species created a very unbalanced society that focused on mental ability and technological advancement to the exclusion of nearly all else. This created an extremely toxic environment on their world, which caused sterility and a rapidly declining planetary ecosystem. The cards from the three Zeta eras, past, present, and future, explore the depths of their despair and the transformation that saved their species. This card, and the card 33, which is there, explores the deep emotional trauma that the Zetas experienced as they realized their species was dying. This card refers to the most primal of fears, that of survival. Humans experience this terror time and again. We only have to look at conditions on the planet to know that at any given moment, thousands are experiencing this fear. If you have pulled this card, look at it in the context of your life circumstances, and other cards. Perhaps this card is telling you to look at your own survival fears and learn to heal them. Perhaps it is telling you that you have a connection to the Zeta in this era and are helping them in some way. If you have no clear understanding of what this card means in this context of your life, use them in your meditation to see if you can gain deeper clarity. Working with this issue as a human is extremely powerful and can change your life because it can free you from the worry, fear, and anxiety that keep you stuck. Okay. So the next card is 31, which is rejecting emotion. Past, again, Zeta. Rejecting emotion. Humans have a tendency to avoid pain at all costs. However, our emotions are an important function of being human. If we make choices to avoid emotional pain, we end up rejecting all emotions, including the positive ones. This happened to the Zetas. Life then becomes dull and we feel disconnected from those around us and the universe. Let yourself embrace all emotions, positive and negative, as being valid part of a being human. Let emotions teach you the lessons you need to learn and enrich your life. Zetas learned this lesson too. They then had to relearn emotions from humans. Imagine shutting emotions to the point where you have to relearn them. If you have pulled this card and are not familiar with the Zeta species, look at the information for cards 30 also. We already read that. This card refers to a specific aspect of their challenges in the past era. The early Zeta species, originally a vegan colony, felt the focusing on only one mental development was the way to evolve. Okay. This card refers to a specific aspect of the challenges in the past era. The early Zeta species felt that focusing only on mental development was the way to evolve. They submerged their emotions and intuitions so profoundly that they lost touch with a vital part of themselves. The society became extremely unbalanced because of this, and the Zetas lost touch with their connection to the universe and themselves. There is a danger on Earth in present day that humans will take a similar path. If this card comes up in your reading, take a look at the other cards as well as your life circumstances. Do you have a habit of rejecting your emotions and pushing them deep inside? This habit will always result in those submerged emotions spilling out, whether through health issues or further emotional challenges. Take a look at your emotional patterns and see if this is a habit in your life. If so, seek to change it and befriend your emotions. The Zetas eventually had to seek help from the humans to learn about emotion and being to reintroduce in their lives. It is possible that you have also had a relationship with the Zetas in helping them relearn healthy emotion processes. That might be one reason why this card is in your reading. Which brings us then to number 32, linear thinking. Zeta Reticuli is we're still on the past. When beings stop themselves from feeling emotions, especially fear, and resort to only logic and negative through reality becomes very limited. New ideas that don't conform to the formula of linear thinking are rejected without exploration. This card recommends that you look at your patterns of limited thinking and see how they restrict the experiences you have in life. Let yourself begin to think outside of the box and explore new ideas that previously seemed impossible. The Zetas had to do this in order to heal their species, and most likely so will humans. Why not start now, right? If you have not read the text for 30 and 31, we did that already, please do so, because this card can be more deeply understood by understanding the Zeta struggles described in those cards. This card refers to a specific aspect of the Zeta struggles of this era, because the Zetas rejected emotions and intuition, which are more holographic in nature. The only process they had left in which to organize reality was that of logic and thought, which are very linear in nature. Remember, the Zeta species originally came from the Vega's colonies, and the seeds of this challenge can be seen in the Vega card 26. It was the first one we did, in which this challenge began. When a person or a society resorts primarily to linear thinking, to negative reality, it creates a very rigid box of perception that creates limitation. This is why the Zetas could not see a way out of the box of the situation they created that nearly destroyed their species. Humans have the same challenge on Earth now, and it is vital that we somehow reconnect with our intuition and emotions in order to navigate away from the same fate that befell the Zetas. If this card came up to your reading, it is challenging you to examine how your own linear thinking keeps you stuck. How can you use your mind and intuition heart to navigate your reality? So how can you connect your heart, like mind, heart, right? To navigate reality instead of using only logic. How can you learn to validate both? Doing so will be a powerful next step in your personal evolution. Which brings us to number 33, past, Zeta Reticuli, desperation. Sometimes when we are in crises, we make choices from fear and desperation that we later wish we could take back. This is true of the Zetas as well. This card asks you to look at the lessons learned by the Zetas and apply them to your life. Never react from fear or desperation, for those choices will be ones that are not aligned with your higher self. Wait. Watch your emotions. Feel and embrace them. Then let them go. When calmness comes, make your choices from there. So once you calm down, then you make the choices. Maybe go for a walk. Maybe do some exercise, before making decisions. If you have already made regrettable choices and it is too late to change them, bless those choices and move on with no regrets, right? Because everything is a lesson anyways. Like when our supposedly bad choices, they're just lessons, take what resonates with that lesson and move forward. Just make sure you don't do it again, because then it becomes a choice. But once you make the choices, and instead of having regret, you learn and take what you learned moving forward and not to do it again, right? If you have not yet read or understood the plight of Zetas, read the descriptions for card 30, 31, and 32. We did that already. This card represents the underlying energy from which the Zetas acted on trying to heal their species' crises. Even though they believed they were not connected with their emotions, this collective suppressed emotions of desperation was what drove them to make decisions, and sometimes those decisions were based on fear. This card came up in your reading. A deep message is given on many levels. It may mean that you have a connection to the Zetas from this era, that you have helped them somehow, perhaps in genetic projects or an understanding emotion. If you want to know more about that, look up Bashar. He talks more about that. Or that you perhaps had a life as a Zeta at the time. It may also mean that you are having ongoing contact with Zetas from this era. But even deeper than this, it is asking you to look at your own life and how you make decisions. All humans feel desperation at some point in their life. Look at how this issue of desperation plays out in your life and see if you can learn to confront and heal your fears before they get to the stage of desperation and decisions are not made from a healthy place. Which brings us to number 35. Deep Polarity Aryan Past, from the Aryan. And in ancient times, the Aryan civilization played out the deepest of polarity during a very dark time in their history. Many souls from Aryan eventually came to Earth to heal this polarity through incarnations as humans. If you have pulled this card, then an Aryan lifetime of yours still has some influence in your life today. These karmic patterns are ready to be released. Examine your natural human tendency to polarize in thought and belief and ask the universe to help you heal this. Also, know that this is a major issue for the entire planet at this time, and your healing affects the whole as well. Right? So going within helps every other soul. In ancient times, Lyrian civilizations, including Vega, expanded, creating in Aryan colonies. The Aryan civilization is known as the group within our galaxy family that experienced the deepest polarity. These memories affect us on Earth, and many humans are still playing out the karma from Aryan. The best pop culture references that of the movie Star Wars, in which there was a corrupt empire that attempted domination of planets and people through very sinister methods, including the manipulation of consciousness and energy through psychic and metaphysical powers. Within the full spectrum of the experience of our galactic family, from unity to fragmentation to reintegration. This era in Aryan was the furthest from unity and the deepest one of separation. If you have pulled this card, it is most likely that you had experiences in the Aryan system during this dark time and most likely still carry painful memories within you. Therefore, it is very important not to repeat the patterns from Aryan. Seek to embrace non-polarized thought here on Earth, for it will be one of the only paths towards integration and healing. Move beyond good and bad, right and wrong, or dark and light. Try to see every condition as an aspect of creation rather than seeing through eyes of separation or judgment. Remember the yin-yang symbol, dark within light, light within dark. Essentially, the universe is in perfect balance. It is only the human mind that creates polarity. This is an important understanding for the next step in human evolution. Which brings us to number 38, Aryan Past, Black League Patterning, right? The secret Aryan society fighting the negative forces was called the Black League. They operated covertly and were a major force for inspiration and hope. A pop culture metaphor would be like the Jedi Knights from Star Wars. You have had experience with this group and this latent tendency of resisting authority or fighting for peace and a deep karmic pattern. Today, it is important that this polarity of us versus them be healed. Shift your focus away from light and dark scenarios. Begin to see reality in a unified way, with all manifestations being an equal and valuable part of creation itself. The Black League is a term referring to the resisting groups that formed during the darkest times in Aryan. These groups were usually run by priests who practiced vegan mysticism and who were warriors as well. These groups ultimately helped change the consciousness within the Aryan system so it could transform, but not without a struggle. They also had to learn the folly of living in polarity, which is what you do when you fight darkness. So even though the Black League and the Orient civilizations as a whole eventually transcended polarity and healed itself. Many beings who had lived there brought this polarized energy to Earth, and it is still playing out here. On Earth, we can see it playing out through secret societies who believe they fight for freedom, for tyranny, religious extremist groups who believe they are liberating people, and any group or person who views reality in a polarized way and fights against the side they label as negative. This only perpetuates polarity. This card comes up in your reading. It usually comes up with other Orient cards, which it did, or cards with a similar theme. Okay, it is most likely suggesting that you look at your view of reality and how you might see it in a polarized way. It is encouraging you to begin to view reality as more of a unified field, and that there is a greater balance that perhaps you cannot see. It is asking you to totally transform your life from one of polarity to one of unity. That's simple. Which brings us to number 48, Earth in the past, Atlantean era. Number 48. This era, spanning approximately the past 13,000 years, represents the masculine principle in a planetary cycle. This cycle is often represented by polarity, war, ignorance, and confusion about spiritual identity. It is a time of darkness and sleep. Humanity is moving out of this cycle now, and we are seeing the old ways crumbling. Do not be discouraged by what you see around you. Consider it a sign that humanity is awakening again. You have had many significant lives in this era and are releasing karmic patterns that you've held for a very long time. Continue your spiritual work. Free yourself. Many have called Atlantis a continent, but we refer to it in this deck as an era, specifically an era of Earth past that took place within the past 13,000 years. The Atlantean era was one of high polarity mentally and movement away from the connection with spirit and with nature. Many may see the Atlantean era as one of the great scientific advancement, but its qualities are more reflective of the emphasis on one polarity, the masculine, more than the other, the feminine. During this Atlantean era, the Orient energy brought to Earth is being healed. During this Atlantean era, the Orient energy brought to Earth is being healed. But sometimes this takes the form of tremendous conflict. Okay. Which was the card that we read before, which was 35 and 38.